Rosie Roche, the granddaughter of Princess Diana's uncle and a cousin of Prince William and Prince Harry, died at her home on July 14th, according to the Times.
The British royal family has been left reeling after an unexpected FBI investigation uncovered something jaw-dropping within the mysterious Rosie Roche estate. What should have been a routine inquiry has now spiraled into a scandal that could shake the monarchy's image across the globe. Insiders claim the discovery is so explosive that senior royals are scrambling behind closed doors to contain the fallout. But what exactly did the FBI find? And why is this shocking revelation tied so closely to the Crown's most guarded secrets? The mystery surrounding Rosie's final moments. It was a quiet and sunny morning on July 14th in the English countryside. Over the soft hills of Wiltshire, the Roche family estate, nestled calmly among the green fields, appeared to be having just another normal summer day. But that illusion of serenity was shattered in an instant by a discovery so heartbreaking, so unexpected, it would ripple through not only a quiet village but the entire British royal circle. Inside the elegant yet modest home of the Roche family, a chilling silence replaced the usual warmth and laughter. Rosie Roche, just 20 years old, full of life, and a beloved cousin to Princes William and Harry, was found dead in her bedroom by the two people who loved her most, her mother and her 16-year-old sister. What they walked into that morning was a nightmare from which they have yet to awaken. Rosie wasn't sick. She wasn't depressed, at least not visibly. In fact, she had been packing excitedly for a weekend getaway with her closest friends. Her half-open suitcase sat by the bed, filled with freshly folded clothes, a worn copy of her favorite novel, and the soft floral perfume she always took when she traveled. It was the kind of scene you'd expect from a young woman preparing for a cheerful escape from daily life. Everything looked normal, perfectly happy even, until you noticed what was lying just a few feet away. Rosie, cold and motionless on the floor. Near her was something completely out of place, a firearm. That one object changed everything. The happy trip she'd been planning would never happen. The future she'd dreamed of had been erased, and a heartwarming family home was now ground zero for a devastating and deeply unsettling mystery. Police were called immediately. Officers arrived within minutes and secured the area. Their initial statements were calm but cautious. They found no evidence of a break-in, no signs of violence, and no indication of anyone else being in the room. Early on, authorities stated there was no suspicion of foul play, but that only raised more questions. If Rosie was alone, why was there a gun? How did it get there? Was it hers? Was this an accident? Or something more complicated? Something darker? Those questions echoed far beyond Wiltshire. Across the country, and especially within royal circles, people struggled to make sense of what had happened. Rosie wasn't just some distant royal cousin, she was known as a kind-hearted, free-spirited girl who carried herself with both grace and humility. Her life was simple, but full. She had plans, career goals, travel dreams, and countless social outings lined up for the summer. Friends described her as upbeat, intelligent, and endlessly loving. Her social media, though not flashy, offered glimpses into her peaceful world. Pictures of her dog running through flower fields, selfies with her little sister, snapshots of countryside walks, and group dinners with friends. No one, not her family, not her friends, saw any warning signs. And that's what makes the story even harder to bear. Was the gun legally owned? Was she simply handling it, and something went horribly wrong? Could it have been a moment of carelessness? One single misstep that led to tragedy? Or was Rosie hiding something? A struggle no one knew about? Investigators have chosen their words carefully. They're still working through every detail, refusing to speculate. Meanwhile, the Roche family has asked the media and the public for space to mourn, to breathe, and to try to begin healing. To them, Rosie is not a headline or a public curiosity. She is a daughter with a contagious smile, a sister who lit up the room, and a young woman whose presence brought joy to everyone she touched. Her loss is a wound that words can't mend, and while answers may eventually come, or may remain forever buried, one heartbreaking truth lingers in the air. A bright future was extinguished far too soon, and a peaceful home in Wiltshire now carries the weight of a grief too deep for words. Rosie's passing leaves behind haunting questions and a silence louder than words. How is her death impacting the British royal family? Let's explore the shocking death of Rosie Roche and the wave of grief shaking Buckingham Palace. The shocking death that shook the Windsors. The British royal family has been shaken to its core by a deeply painful and utterly unexpected tragedy. A heartbreaking shadow now looms over Buckingham Palace, casting sorrow not just across the royal household, but also throughout the United Kingdom and beyond. The devastating news of the 20-year-old Rosie Roche's sudden death has stunned the nation. Though she lived far from the spotlight, her quiet presence was rooted in royalty, and now her loss has become a symbol of the fragility of life, even within the walls of monarchy. Rosie wasn't a name splashed across tabloids or social media feeds like her more famous cousins, Prince William and Prince Harry, but to those who knew her, she was royalty in the truest sense: graceful, kind, humble, and full of quiet dignity. She carried the royal bloodline with elegance, never flaunting it. Rosie was connected to the House of Windsor through Princess Diana's family, as the granddaughter of Edmund Roche, the 5th Baron Fermoy, and brother to Diana's mother, Frances Shand Kidd. That made Rosie a second cousin to William and Harry, linking her directly to one of the most beloved figures in modern royal history. Unlike the world of luxury and flashing cameras that surrounds many royal figures, Rosie lived a simple, peaceful life, away from the noise. Her world was one of countryside walks, close friends, and personal passions. She adored animals, especially dogs, and was often seen with a book in hand or a thoughtful expression on her face. Her life wasn't about titles or attention. It was about connection, warmth, and inner strength. Friends describe her as someone who listened more than she spoke, someone whose presence made others feel calm and seen. So when the announcement of her death came without warning, it felt like a thunderclap, sudden, jarring, and deeply painful. Buckingham Palace, normally buzzing with ceremony, state affairs, and tightly choreographed royal engagements, fell into an unfamiliar stillness. The grief was not performative, it was real, raw, and visible in the faces of those who usually keep emotions tightly tucked behind polished protocol. Palace aides moved more slowly. Senior royals were unusually silent. The usual rhythm of royal life was interrupted by a grief that couldn't be hidden. What makes this loss even harder to bear is how young Rosie was. Only 20, just stepping into adulthood, with her whole life ahead of her. Those closest to her, both in the royal circle and in her personal life, speak of dreams she hoped to chase, places she wanted to visit, and the quiet impact she made on everyone she met. There's a deep sadness in knowing that such a gentle and promising soul was taken so soon, without warning or farewell. The royal family, known for their tradition of stoicism and emotional reserve, has been visibly affected. Some members, who rarely speak about private matters, have been quietly reflecting on the fragile nature of life and the importance of family. In a way, Rosie's passing has cut through centuries of royal detachment, exposing something raw and human beneath the crown. Her death has also touched the public. People from across the country, many of whom had never heard of Rosie before this tragedy, are expressing sorrow and sympathy. Why? Because her story reminds us all that behind every royal portrait is a real person. And Rosie was one of the most real, down-to-earth royals there was. This isn't just the loss of a distant royal cousin. It's the loss of a young woman who represented a quieter, more grounded side of royalty. A life full of promise, a gentle heart, a bridge between nobility and everyday humanity. In mourning Rosie, the nation grieves more than a name. It grieves for the dreams that died too soon, and for the reminder that no family, no matter how historic or powerful, is immune to heartbreak. Rosie's tragic death leaves a silence no title can ever fill. The royal family will never forget her. But what could have led to the loss of this bright, promising young woman? Let's explore the shocking cause behind Rosie Roche's sudden passing. Tragic truth revealed. The heartbreaking puzzle surrounding the sudden death of Rosie Roche has finally started to come into focus. Yet, with new answers also come deeper, more haunting questions. About a week ago, the world was stunned when news broke that Rosie had been found dead in her home. Beside her lifeless body, authorities discovered a firearm. The shocking detail immediately ignited a storm of speculation. For someone so young and so closely connected to the British royal family, the discovery was nothing short of alarming. Was it a tragic accident? Was someone else involved? Or was there something far more complex hidden behind the headlines? Now, the official cause of her death has been made public, offering some clarity, though not complete peace. According to The Independent, which cited a statement from the Wiltshire and Swindon coroner's office, Rosie died from a traumatic head injury. In simple terms, this means she suffered a very serious wound to her head, one severe enough to cause her untimely death. This revelation has stirred another wave of sadness and confusion. While the statement answers one pressing question, what caused Rosie's death, it doesn't fully explain how or why it happened. The presence of the firearm near her body continues to cast a long, uncomfortable shadow over the case. Earlier in the investigation, a coroner spoke with The Sun, offering preliminary insight. At that time, the message from officials was that there was no immediate reason to suspect foul play. The police were confident that no one else was involved in causing Rosie harm. This was not, they suggested, a crime scene involving third-party violence, but that has done little to quiet the whispers. The fact remains, Rosie, a young woman with royal blood, was found alone and dead in her home, with a weapon close by. That scenario is hard for many to accept without wondering whether more is being kept hidden from public view. Even as the authorities work to piece together the full picture, the emotional toll is impossible to ignore. Rosie's death is not just another sad story. It's one that touches one of the most famous families in the world. As a relative of Prince William and Prince Harry, Rosie wasn't just a distant royal footnote. She was family. Her passing is deeply personal for the royals, especially for William and Harry, who have already endured the heartbreaking loss of their mother, Princess Diana, at a young age. And for the public, Rosie's story hits a tender nerve. She represents a quiet member of the royal family, someone who lived outside the spotlight, but still carried the weight of her royal lineage. Her death reminds us that even those born into privilege are not protected from pain, tragedy, or mental health struggles. Behind every palace gate is a human heart, capable of breaking just like anyone else's. What's also been clear is the delicate way the case has been handled by both law enforcement and the media. The coroner's carefully chosen words and the police's insistence on privacy show a deep respect for Rosie's grieving loved ones. At the same time, the public remains eager to know more, not out of mere curiosity, but from a desire to understand what truly happened to this young woman, who until recently few had even heard of. As the investigation continues, quietly and cautiously, many hope the full truth will eventually come to light. Only then can her family, the royals, and the public begin to make sense of this devastating loss. All that remains are the fragments of a tragic mystery and a life ended far too soon. For now, Rosie Roche is remembered not only as a royal cousin, but as a young woman whose life was tragically cut short. But has there been an official inquest into her death? Let's take a closer look at the official statement and the coroner's revealing findings. Official investigations and silent tears. On July 21st, the quiet chambers of the Wiltshire and Swindon Coroner's Court turned into the epicenter of growing national interest. The much-anticipated inquest into the untimely and heartbreaking death of Rosie Roche, beloved cousin to Princes William and Harry, officially began, pulling in a wave of reporters, royal watchers, and curious citizens. Everyone came looking for one thing: answers. At the center of the proceedings stood Area Coroner Grant Davies, a man known for his calm demeanor and methodical approach. After carefully reviewing the case and consulting with law enforcement, he delivered a statement that, while intended to bring clarity, only added more fuel to the fire. According to the police, there was no evidence that Rosie's death involved anyone else. No signs of foul play, no hidden threat, no crime. Officially, it was labeled a non-suspicious death. But if that's the end of the story, why is the investigation still open? Instead of closing the case, the inquest was unexpectedly adjourned, postponed until October 25th. And just like that, a new wave of questions rushed in to fill the silence. If the authorities truly believe no one else was involved, what's causing the delay? Are their details too delicate or too explosive to be shared just yet? Could there be undisclosed evidence still being studied behind locked doors? This pause, subtle as it may seem, has left a cloud of mystery hanging over Rosie's death. It's as though the official report opened a window, only to leave it slightly ajar, just enough for rumors to drift in, for doubts to take root, and for questions to multiply. For many, the situation feels strangely incomplete when someone so young, connected to the highest levels of British royalty, dies so suddenly. A neat explanation often isn't enough. People want to know why. They want the full story, every missing piece, every untold chapter. Rosie was just 20 years old, a life still blooming. Her tragic passing, reportedly involving a nearby firearm, immediately drew comparisons to other royal-related mysteries that the world never fully understood. And, while officials insist no crime occurred, the mere fact that this case remains open has stirred intense curiosity and deep concern. For Rosie's family and close friends, the wait is nothing short of agonizing. Instead of being allowed to grieve in peace, they now endure a slow and painful process filled with uncertainty. With each passing day, they're left hoping that the next update will bring closure, that the final truth will help them understand how this beautiful young woman's life came to such an abrupt end. The silence from the authorities only adds to their pain. It's hard to heal when answers are missing. It's even harder when the world is watching and speculating, weaving theories and guessing at truth that haven't been revealed. And the public? They're still captivated. Rosie's quiet connection to the royal family, her mysterious lifestyle, the unusual details surrounding her death, all of it has formed a narrative too compelling to ignore. A royal cousin dies suddenly. A weapon is found nearby. An investigation continues, but no one knows why. It reads like the beginning of a thriller, and people are waiting for the next twist. As we move toward October, eyes remain fixed on the calendar and on the coroner's court. Everyone is waiting to hear what else might surface. Will it be a simple clarification, or will something shocking come to light? One thing is undeniable. Rosie Roche's death has left a painful void, not just for her grieving family, but for a nation searching for answers. The questions grow louder, the mystery deepens, and with the inquest delayed, the world can do nothing but wait and wonder what truths are still hidden in the shadows. But who exactly was Rosie? What were her passions and hobbies? Let's unravel the story of this bright literary star and compassionate soul. Remembering Rosie Jean Burke Roche. Rosie Roche wasn't just a name in the royal family tree. She was a shining light, a young woman whose presence brought warmth, curiosity, and creativity into every room she walked into. At just 20 years old, Rosie had her whole life ahead of her, full of hopes, ambitions, and a heart ready to embrace the world. But instead of making headlines for her royal connection, she quietly made a deep and lasting impression on everyone lucky enough to cross her path. Rosie had recently begun her first year studying English literature at Durham University, one of the most respected and historic institutions in the United Kingdom. For many students, getting accepted into Durham is a dream come true. But Rosie wasn't just any student. She came alive when surrounded by words, poetry, and the beauty of storytelling. Her love for books wasn't academic. It was personal, emotional, and powerful. She didn't just read stories. She felt them. She connected with the characters, explored their struggles, and uncovered the hidden meanings behind every sentence. To Rosie, literature was more than just schoolwork. It was a gateway to understanding the world and the human heart. From her very first weeks on campus, Rosie stood out, not because of her royal blood, but because of her light. Her energy was infectious. She was always smiling, always curious, and always willing to dive into deep conversations or spontaneous laughter. Whether she was raising her hand during a lecture to ask thoughtful questions, helping organize student events, or chatting with friends over coffee, Rosie had a way of making people feel seen, heard, and appreciated. Her professors admired her deeply. They described her as one of the most thoughtful and passionate students they had encountered. Rosie treated literature not as a chore, but as a tool for exploring life's biggest questions: love, loss, joy, grief, identity, and purpose. She understood the power of words, and she used them wisely. In her essays and discussions, she wove together ideas with maturity beyond her years, always digging deeper, always striving to understand the layers of meaning in every text. Outside the classroom, Rosie was just as inspiring. Her friends remember her not only as intelligent, but also as deeply kind. She was the kind of person who would drop everything to be there for someone in need. She had a gentle spirit and a quiet strength. She adored animals, especially dogs, and often volunteered at shelters or helped classmates care for their pets. Rosie didn't chase popularity or attention. She preferred meaningful connections over big crowds. Her acts of kindness weren't loud. They were sincere, heartfelt, and unforgettable. Rosie's passion for creativity extended far beyond her reading list. She was a regular contributor to a student-run arts and culture magazine, where she shared her thoughts on poetry, identity, and the challenges faced by young people today. Her articles were filled with emotion and insight, revealing a writer who not only had talent, but also courage, the courage to be vulnerable and authentic on the page. She didn't just want to consume knowledge. She wanted to use her voice to make a difference. Her writing showed a glimpse of a future literary star, a young woman determined to inspire change through art and expression. Balancing her studies, her creative projects, and her friendships wasn't always easy, but Rosie handled it all with grace and a quiet determination. She was building something special, laying the foundation for a life of meaning, purpose, and impact. Her classmates often said she had an old soul, the kind of wisdom and empathy that's rare in someone so young. Teachers saw her as a rising star. Friends saw her as their safe space, someone they could trust, confide in, and count on. And then, just like that, it was all gone. Rosie's sudden and tragic death sent shockwaves through her university and the royal family alike. It felt impossible that someone so full of life, laughter, and dreams could be taken so soon. But even in death, Rosie left something powerful behind: a memory of goodness, a spark of brilliance, and a legacy of compassion. She was more than a royal cousin. She was a daughter, a friend, a student, a writer, a dreamer. She was a reminder that behind every name and title lies a person, real, vibrant, and full of dreams. Rosie Roche may have lived only 20 short years, but her impact will be felt for far longer. Her story reminds us all, sometimes the quietest voices carry the most powerful messages, and Rosie's voice, through her kindness, her words, and her spirit, will never be forgotten. So, what do you think about Rosie Roche's mysterious death? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.